It was 2 a.m. IBRAHIM Traoré was still in his office. Phones were ringing non-stop. The central bank president, economy minister, and several advisors were in an emergency meeting. Terrible news flashed on the screen. French banks halt money transfers to Burkina Faso. IMF suspends loan payments, CFA franc being withdrawn from market. The country's economic collapse could begin within hours. Traoré slammed his fist on the table. This is how they've controlled us for years. Even our money isn't our own. Then he turned to his team and laid out a plan so bold that everyone stared in disbelief. "We can't do this," said the finance minister. "Nobody has ever done it." Traoré smiled. "Then we'll be the first." The tension in the presidential palace's meeting room was palpable. Outside, the lights of Ouagadougou city sparkled, while inside, Burkina Faso's future was being thrown into uncertainty. IBRAHIM Traoré walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out with thoughtful eyes. "How much reserves do we have?" he asked, without turning from the city. Dr. Amina Konate, the central bank president, looked at her file. "Officially $400 million, but most of it is held in accounts in Paris. We can't access it now." "And gold?" asked Traoré. "We have 78 tons of registered gold reserves, but..." Dr. Konate hesitated. "But that too is in France," Traoré completed with a bitter smile. Economy Minister Ousmane Sonko shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mr. President, you need to understand the seriousness of the situation. You're threatening to leave the West African Economic Union. Rejecting the CFA franc is economic suicide." "Suicide?" Traoré turned, fire in his eye. "Or liberation? Tell me, Sonko, how can we be an independent country when we can't even print our own money? The CFA franc, the last chain of colonization?" Sonko spread his hands. "All of Africa uses this system. Mali, Niger, Senegal, all of them. And all of them remain perpetually poor," said Traoré, approaching the table. "Do you know why? Because every time we print a banknote, we have to deposit dollars to the French treasury in return. We pay them to use our own money. Is this freedom?" The meeting room fell into silence. Everyone knew Traoré was right, but there seemed to be no alternative. For 70 years, West African countries had used the CFA franc, the French colonial monetary system. Independence was just a piece of paper. Real power remained in Paris. Dr. Konate took a deep breath. "Mr. President, we all know you're right, but practically what can we do? We don't have the infrastructure to create our own currency. No printing presses. And if people start withdrawing money from banks tomorrow morning," Traoré placed a file on the table. "That's why I've been secretly planning this for the last 3 months." The advisors looked at the file in surprise. "Operation Sankara," said Traoré. "Thomas Sankara's unfinished dream. Financial independence." When he opened the file, everyone in the room gasped. Inside were detailed plans for a new currency to replace the CFA franc, the Burkina gold. "This is impossible," stammered the finance minister. "Our foreign exchange reserves aren't sufficient." Without international recognition, Traoré smiled and pulled a small, shiny disc from his pocket. It was a gold-colored coin with a baobab tree on one side and the country's map on the other. "Prototype of the Burkina gold," he said. "Made from 100% domestic gold. Extracted from our own mines. Processed on our own soil. But," Dr. Konate searched for words, "foreign companies control our mines. They monitor our gold exports." Traoré's eyes gleamed. "Not anymore." "Not!" The economy minister jumped to his feet. "You nationalize the gold mines? When?" "Officially tomorrow morning," said Traoré calmly. "But the operation began 3 hours ago. The army is now taking control of all mines. French and American company executives are being politely escorted to the border." Those in the room looked at each other in astonishment. The move was bold, dangerous, but also clever. "What about boycotts, sanctions?" asked Dr. Konate. "The West will do everything to crush us." "Of course they will," Traoré confirmed. "They'll want to punish us, but to punish us, they first need access to us. And this is where the second phase comes in." He pressed a button, and a world map appeared on the screen. Certain countries were marked: Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, India, Brazil. "For the past 6 months, we've made secret agreements with these countries," said Traoré. "Direct trade with their own currencies, bypassing the dollar or euro. We'll sell our gold directly to these countries, and they'll provide us with the technology and products we need." "I didn't know about this," said the economy minister, his voice trembling. "You didn't need to know," Traoré said kindly. "If French intelligence had sensed even the slightest hint, the financial blockade we're experiencing today would have started months ago." Dr. Konate took the coin in her hand, holding it to the light. "Beautiful," she said, "but will people accept it? Habits don't change easily." Traoré smiled. "People have been storing gold at jewelers for years. We're offering them something of real value instead of worthless paper money. But the real punch is here." He opened another file. Inside were designs for digital wallets. "The Burkina Digital Wallet," said Traoré. "A free mobile app for every citizen. Gold-backed digital currencies. 100% transparent, secure, and most importantly, completely outside the Western banking system." The finance minister shook his head. "This is crazy and brilliant. But how will we convince the people?" Just then, Traoré's assistant entered the room. "Mr. President, the connection is ready." Traoré turned to his team. "Convince the people. Let me show you." The large screen came on. On screen were leaders from 5 different African countries: Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, and Benin. "Presidents," said Traoré, "I believe we've all received the same news. The West has pulled its economic weapon again. But this time we're prepared. I want to share our plan." 2 hours later, when the meeting ended, there was a new energy in the room. Fear had given way to determination. Ibrahim Traoré looked at his advisors. Day was breaking. "Dawn is coming," he said. "Not just in Ouagadougou, but across Africa." Dr. Konate closed her laptop. "Will you make the announcement to the people tomorrow morning?" Traoré shook his head. "I'll do it now. People should know the truth before they go to the bank. They should feel pride, not panic." His request for an emergency broadcast to the national television station was approved within minutes. As the team prepared, Traoré examined the prototype in his hand one last time. The gold coin gleamed under the morning sun. "Thomas Sankara," he whispered, as if addressing the ghost of the revolutionary leader. "Today we complete your unfinished work." At 6:30 a.m., as the people of Burkina Faso were preparing their breakfasts, they were surprised to see President Traoré on their televisions. He stood in his military uniform, calm but determined. "People of Burkina Faso," he began, "I appear before you in these early hours to make an important announcement. Last night, French banks and Western financial institutions launched an economic war against our country. They cut off our access to our money. They stopped transfers. They canceled loans. In homes, cafes, and on street screens, people looked at each other with concern. You know why they did this," Traoré continued. "Because we want our independence, because we demand control of our resources, because we say that Burkina Faso belongs to the Burkinabe." The camera zoomed in on the gold coin he held in his hand. "From today we stop using the colonial currency, the CFA franc. We start using our own money, the Burkina gold. A currency backed by 100% domestic gold, carrying real value." Then he held up his mobile phone, showing the app glowing on the screen. "And this is the Burkina Digital Wallet. It will be distributed free to every citizen. You no longer need banks for your money. The digital gold will be directly in your wallet." People stared at the screen in amazement. For some, this was a frightening change. For others, it was a long-awaited liberation. "Don't worry," said Traoré, as if reading their thoughts. "All the money in your CFA franc accounts will be converted to Burkina gold at twice the value. No one will lose, everyone will gain." After this sentence across the country, small cries of joy and whispered questions could be heard. "But most importantly," Traoré continued, "we will be the ones controlling our money. We will be the ones determining our destiny. And we are not doing this alone." The screen split, and next to him appeared the faces of other West African leaders. They all conveyed the same message: Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, and Benin, all leaving the CFA franc system on the same day, at the same time, and switching to their own gold-backed currency. "This is not a revolution, it's an evolution," said Traoré. "The final link in our independence. Now we are truly free." When the speech ended, something extraordinary began happening in the streets. Instead of rushing to banks in panic, people were discussing the Burkina Digital Wallet app they had started downloading on their phones. It was simple to use, sleek, and most importantly, It belonged to them. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. In Paris, at 7:45 a.m., the French Central Bank was in an emergency meeting. The executive responsible for the Africa desk was looking at the data on the screen in horror. 6 countries left the system simultaneously, he said, trembling. This is a coordinated move. And what's more? What more? Asked the bank president impatiently. The digital wallets have been downloaded millions of times in just a few hours. People are accepting this. There's no run on the banks. The president reached for his phone. I need to call the Ministry of Finance. We must start sanctions immediately. The ministry is already calling, said the assistant, extending the phone. The voice on the phone was panicked. The mines are gone. Energy agreements canceled. Permissions for military bases revoked. All of West Africa is slipping out of our control. In Ouagadougou, IBRAHIM Traoré sat in his office, monitoring international reactions. As expected, Western media was drawing doomsday scenarios. Economic collapse begins in Africa. West African countries commit suicide. Traoré condemns his people to starvation. But on the other hand, unexpected messages of support were coming in. Russia, China, India, Turkey, Brazil, South Africa, all with congratulations, offers of cooperation, and promises to recognize their gold-backed currency. Dr. Konate entered the room, excited. You won't believe it, Mr. President. 4 million people have downloaded the app. That's nearly a fifth of our population, Traoré smiled. People have tasted freedom, Konate. There's no going back now. And what's more, Dr. Konate continued, there are thousands of downloads from other African countries too. Ghana, Congo, Senegal. Everyone is talking about this. A week later, IBRAHIM Traoré stood in a small village square. Villagers had gathered around him. An elderly farmer was looking at the phone in his hand. I don't know how to use this, Mr. President, he said shyly. Traoré sat down next to him. Let me show you, he said gently. Look, when you press this button, your wallet opens. Here you can see how many Burkina golds you have. The old man's eyes lit up. This is the real value of my money? Yes, father, said Traoré, and no one can take it from you. Can't freeze your bank account. Can't stop transfer. This is your freedom. The villager pressed the mobile phone to his chest. For the first time, he said with a trembling voice, I feel like my money is safe with me. This simple sentence confirmed the importance of what Traoré had done. This wasn't just an economic move. It was a psychological liberation. IMF and World Bank analysts had predicted that Burkina Faso wouldn't last for weeks. A month passed, and the economy was still standing. 2 months passed, and trade volume began to increase. 3 months later, IBRAHIM Traoré was invited to the BRICS summit. At the meeting in Moscow, world leaders listened carefully to Traoré. Eastern and southern countries wanted to learn the details of West Africa's bold move. The gold standard was abandoned 50 years ago, said the Russian leader. Your bringing it back is quite interesting. We haven't gone back to the past, Traoré replied. We're going to the future. Digital gold, a currency backed by our own resources. This is next-generation independence. The Chinese leader leaned forward. Your digital wallet technology is impressive. It could offer an alternative model for the global financial system. After the summit, the agreements Traoré signed for his country created panic in the Western press. Direct energy and military agreements with Russia, technology and infrastructure projects with China, medicine and agriculture cooperation with India. Food security programs with Brazil, industry and education partnerships with Turkey. Western newspaper headlines were alarming. Burkina Faso moving away from the West. Zrenia, Nova Holodna Vina v Africi. Zrenia, Traoré's dangerous game. But Traoré just smiled as he flew back to his country. We're not moving away from the West, he told Dr. Konate. We're just moving closer to the whole world. We no longer have a single master. We have many partners. On his phone, the Burkina digital wallet app glowed. The statistics were impressive. 12 million active users, 2 million daily transactions across 6 countries, 0 downtime, 0 hacks. 6 months passed. West Africa's gold-backed currency evolved into the African gold. 14 African countries joined the system. The old colonial currency, the CFA franc, faded into the pages of history. IBRAHIM Traoré was now seen not just as a country leader, but as a pioneer of a continental movement. One morning, at the opening of the new Central Bank of Burkina Faso building, Traoré stood at the podium. Behind magnificent gold-plated doors, the country's gold reserves, reclaimed from the West, were securely stored. Today, we're not just opening a building, he told the crowd. We're opening a new page in our history. Once our gold was kept in foreign vaults. Now it's here, on our own soil, under our own control. As the crowd applauded, a woman in the back rows was crying. She was Thomas Sankara's wife, the widow of Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, the visionary killed in a coup in 1987. He would have loved to see this, she said, shaking Traore's hand. Financial independence was his greatest dream. We're bringing his vision to life, said Traore. But the only reason we can do this is because of the seeds he planted. Outside the city, at the newly established Burkina Technology Center, young engineers were working. They were developing a new version of the digital wallet app, empowered with blockchain technology, energy efficient, and most importantly, entirely designed and coded by Africans. Burkina Faso had not just created a currency, it had built an ecosystem. From mining to refining, from digital technology to security, the entire system was designed by Africans for Africans. The IMF president was speaking in front of cameras with a forced smile. Our dialogues with Burkina Faso and its allies continue. We are examining their new currency system. Translation: we can no longer stop them. We have to deal with them. The French president had embarked on an Africa tour. He was promising a new beginning to countries that were once his colonies. But no one believed the old stories anymore. At a press conference, an African journalist asked, "How do you assess West African countries' transition to gold-backed currency?" "We respect their independent decisions," said the French leader with a tense expression. "But I'd like to warn about the risks." His words were cut off by laughter in the room. A year later, Ibrahim Traore was once again on the international stage, this time at the United Nations General Assembly podium. His speech was short but powerful. A year ago, 6 countries took a bold step. Today, 22 African countries use the United African Gold. Our inflation rate has dropped. Our trade volume has increased. Our technological investments have tripled. Western delegates shifted uncomfortably. They told us we couldn't do it. They told us we would collapse. They told us we would starve. Traore smiled, but we didn't tell them anything. We just did it. Unending applause filled the entire hall. An African country had freed itself from centuries of economic bondage. And this was just the beginning.
Congratulations to Ibrahim Traore. Congratulations to Burkina Faso. Congratulations to Celebrity President. How I wish other African leaders can learn from this. We are given independence with just mere papers, but they still control our resources. But Burkina Faso, through Ibrahim Traore, have seen the need to cut away from their colonial masters. Though it's going to be so difficult, but if they can endure, have it at the back of your mind, they will surely smile. And these are some of the things some African leaders do not want to go through. Imagine a president owning family house in another country, which happens to be their colonial master. How do you expect such a person to be thinking in this direction? I just hope and pray that the number will increase subsequently. Other African countries will see the need to be truly independent, where they can have control over their resources. It is possible. I just wish that my country, Nigeria, will learn from this. Anyway, whatever you think, drop your comment in the comment section, share, and follow the page. Once again, congratulations to our celebrity president, Ibrahim Traore. You have made Africa proud.